Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. As the title says, we're here nightly, 7 nights a week, working for you. Want to hear from you at 412-575-2600. You can also hit us up on Twitter at KDPomp, at The Pony Express. Andrew Filipponi up at 93.7 The Fan. And right off the bat, I'm going to hit with some tweets. We heard the sound from some of the national media, some saying that Justin Fields should start the openers, others saying Russell Wilson. Well, George Lochner says, what in the world has Justin Fields done to warrant him starting anything? And then we have this from Sam R., who says Russell Wilson doesn't turn the ball over, therefore he will start. That's the way the Steelers play. And we have this tweet from Jeremiah X, and he says it doesn't matter. They're below average. So there's all sorts of opinions, Andrew, and I want to get your take on what you saw the other night. Not a good performance. Again, the first team 0 for 8 now. They haven't produced any points. And if this is truly a competition, because when you say a pole position indicates somebody has the lead, is it truly a competition? And if so, who's winning?
Well, you gave me a lot of questions there, Bob. Let me try to get as many in as I can here. I would still start Russell Wilson. I didn't like what I saw on Saturday, but guess what? I don't care about that. Both will end up playing this year, but I want to give Russell Wilson the first chance to win the job and be the guy.
Yeah, I think that will be the case. And again, I think the lack of turnovers in his career will help him get that job. I've seen a lot of Twitter debate about that throw by Justin Fields, by the way. And you can make whatever excuse you want. It was not a good throw. He was open. They had to put the ball, to me, on the inside more, let him run to it as opposed to where he put it. But a lot of people believe he stopped running, Luther, the wide receiver. And whatever the case, it's a blown opportunity, isn't it? I mean, that was a play that should have worked for 6 points.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the read option play on 4th down, he should have given the ball to the running back. Mm-hmm. And I think the guy would have scored on that play. Instead, he got tackled for a loss and a turnover on downs. Now, he also had that amazing play where he bounced off a guy, fixed his helmet, and found Fitzpatrick for a first down. That was incredible. His running plays, too, for the most part, were really good. I think that there's upside with Justin Fields. I disagree with the person who said, what has he done to deserve to play? 2 years ago, he got MVP votes. He was on a team that was deliberately tanking, that was trying to lose on purpose, and he was great. The record didn't reflect it, but he was, other than Lamar Jackson, he had the second best rushing season by a quarterback ever and led the entire NFL in yards per rushing play. Now, I understand a quarterback's first job or responsibility is to throw the ball. He's thrown fewer interceptions in his first 3 years than Big Ben did. So he's not there as a passer yet. He's got to get better. I think the coaching in Chicago was terrible. I think he'll get better coaching here with Arthur Smith and Tom Arth. So I'm not giving up on Justin Fields yet just because he started his career with a really bad team. There are all kinds of guys that are in bad situations earlier in their career and go to a better place, a better environment with better players and better coaching and end up doing okay for themselves.
You know, last year, Pony, one of the things that the Steelers had sort of a luxury is that they didn't have many big injuries to their offensive line. So they were able to get cohesiveness. They played better as the year went on when they made a change from Canada. But now all of a sudden things have shifted here. We have an injury to Troy Fautanu, not sure when he'll get back. He didn't look all that good in his first and only game. And then you see what happened, basically to Nate Herbert, who's going to be done now apparently for the season. And that's fine because I think Frazier is going to win that job anyway. But it does affect your depth. And over the course of 17 games, this could be a problem. And you had mentioned that Broderick Jones does not look good for whatever reason. I'm also of the belief that they're playing him out of position. Yes, he played well last year at right tackle as the year went on. He still was drafted to be a left tackle, but they also drafted Fautanu, who's a left tackle. So how many left tackles can you have if you have Dan Moore over there, too, and he can't play the right side?
I think Broderick Jones should play in Detroit at left tackle, especially if Fautanu is going to be ready for week 1. Reports that Fautanu will start when he's ready to play. Then let's give Broderick Jones a week of practice and a game to get ready to protect the blind side of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. And if they don't do that, then I think that'll be a mistake, especially if the plan all along is to start Fautanu at right tackle, the second he's ready to go. So Jones has been abysmal in these 2 games. I think the coaching staff is frustrated with him. I think that's why that Fautanu report came out in the first place. They're trying to motivate him to win a job and start. I think they're trying to motivate him by forcing him to play so much in these preseason games, Bob. He's played a ton, more than any offensive player in these first 2 games. And I think Jones is fed up with that because he feels like he should get starter treatment from this coaching staff, and it hasn't happened. So he was a raw player when he came out of Georgia with a lot of upside and potential, and I just don't feel like right now they're tapping into it enough, and that would be a major issue if Broderick Jones doesn't develop into an upper echelon offensive tackle for the Steelers this year, Bob.
We are due for a break, and we'll take it right now. Come back with more and your phone calls at 412-575-2600. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. We're live on KDKA+. Welcome back. Our GMC Sierra tweet of the night comes from our buddy Jerry Dulac over the PG. Jalen Warren, typical hamstring, couple of weeks recovery, could be ready for the season opener. But he also might not be because hamstrings are difficult sometimes to figure out. With that in mind, it's Atlanta. And you may say to yourself, well, that's Arthur Smith's team, 3 straight 7-10 seasons, but they've made changes there. Most notably, Kirk Cousins is their quarterback to start this. We have a tweet from Bell and Brody, and they say, do you think the additions of Simmons and Judon to Atlanta's defense makes them a little bit more formidable for the Steelers in week 1? My answer to that is yes, it does. And the Kirk Cousins that I know puts up points. The Steelers are going to have to go against that. This is why I thought, these early games are important for the Steelers. They got to come out and put up some offense. So at all, does that concern you, the additions they've made down there in Atlanta?
Of course they do. Judon's a nice player, not a great one. He's in his early 30s now, and Simmons was a solid safety for Denver, although he was a free agent, all offseason, so you got to wonder about that, why somebody like him was available for so long. Bob, their defense should go in and win these first 2 games. I know they're road games, and they're an underdog against Atlanta, and I get why, because Kirk Cousins is an established starting quarterback, even though he's old and he's coming off an injury. But this is an elite defense. It should be, at least. There's no excuse why Mike Tomlin's highly paid unit should not have the advantage against a Falcons offense trying to find itself with new coaches and a new quarterback, and then Denver presumably starting a rookie quarterback and it being his second game under center. So if you have an elite defense, honestly, even though they're road games, you should win both games if your defense is all it's cracked up to be, and as long as your offense doesn't screw it up. I mean, there will absolutely be times this year where the Steelers are going to have to call upon their offense to win them games. But early in this season with the schedule, those first 2, even though they're on the road, come on. You've got T.J. Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick, Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, Patrick Queen. The Steelers' defense should be the best unit on the field in those first 2 games. All
right, let's get to the phone calls, Andrew. Beginning with our number 1 Cochrane Go One Better caller of the night. Let's go to line number 1. That's David in Finleyville. David, what's going on?
Hi, Bob. Hi, Andrew. Thanks for taking my call. I'd like to ask the both of you, if Russell starts, how many games would you give him until you replace him with Justin Fields?
I think that's an open-ended question that we don't have an answer for because it depends on what happens. If it's an injury, that's one thing. If it's performance-related, but I don't know how many games you give him based on performance. Now, if they start 3 out of 4 on the road and it looks dreary and they're 1-3, maybe there's time, knowing the back end of that schedule is very demanding, Andrew. So I think that's just a question we're going to have to find out as time goes on.
I'd have no issue with that. If after 4 games, if they're 1-3 and Wilson is holding on to the ball, taking too many sacks, not looking to the middle of the field, playing way too careful, way too conservative, and it looks like the Steelers' offense we've seen the last 2 years, I would go to Fields in that situation and say, all right, kid, let's build an offense around your athleticism and see where it takes us, because that very cautious approach to football from Russell Wilson, that might win you 8 or 9 games, Bob, but it ain't going to get you very far in a loaded AFC unless, again this year, other starting quarterbacks get injured and it waters down the product. If Aaron Rodgers and Joe Burrow stay healthy last year, Bob, the Steelers aren't a playoff team. I give them credit for rallying in what Mason Rudolph did, but probably the biggest reason why they made the playoffs as the 7 seed was because 2 of the best quarterbacks in the NFL got injured and didn't play.
Yeah, that's correct. And you never know how the season's going to go that way. But I would agree with your assessment about Russell Wilson. Yeah, you want to protect the ball, and Mike Tomlin certainly made that clear to everyone last year. But if you do it at the expense of having an explosive offense, taking chances down the field, and he does have a good deep ball, I would be somewhat disappointed. Let's go to Anthony in Verona. Anthony joins us here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. What's up?
Hey!
Hey!
The Steelers, is they winning anything? They losing?
I don't know what you just said there, Anthony, so we're going to bypass you and go to Mark in Madison. Hello, Mark. How are you tonight?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Hey, if I didn't know any better, I kind of thought it was check down Kenny playing the first quarter of that game.
It looked the same, yes. And you know what? Russell Wilson, if you look at last year, a lot of his passes were in the same direction. And, you know, it's one thing to have a well-designed screenplay, and that's the kind of pass you throw. It's another thing to throw it and check down. I'm not a big fan of check downs unless the coverage is so good play after play. But Andrew, they have some people who are capable of stretching the field here a little bit. I'd like to see them take chances.
I don't think they have enough of them, though, and that's why this Ayuk thing is so important to me and everything that's gone on here, because Calvin Austin, again, a horrible false start on that first drive. Van Jefferson was their leading receiver, but it's not like he made any big plays or plays downfield. He had 19 receiving yards. Freiermuth had a catch and should have broken a tackle for a first down, but couldn't get through it. I mean, I've got questions about this receiving core. Now Jaylen Warren, one of their best options out of the backfield. You know, we'll see if he's able to get back on the field against Atlanta. I don't like seeing hamstring and running back in the same sentence. I'm always worried that turns into a nagging chronic thing, especially if you rush it back and don't give the guy the proper rest in order to recover. Bob, I'm going to throw this out there. I said it at the time. And look, I think Broderick Jones can still develop into a good player, even though I really question this team's coaching staff and their ability to do that. I thought they should have just stayed where they, bless you, I thought the Steelers should have stayed where they were and taken Jordan Addison. And part of the reason why I said that at first was because of Kenny Pickett and that chemistry. But I think their offense would be in a better place right now with Jordan Addison. Then you wouldn't have to be going after Ayuk like this, thinking about giving up draft picks. And yeah, you wouldn't have Broderick Jones, but maybe you would have brought in an offensive lineman in free agency. And I don't know, I'm not a Dan Moore fan, but I honestly think Dan Moore's better at his job than Van Jefferson is at his, Bob. I think it's easier to get away with an average left tackle than it is literally a black hole of wide receivers after George Pickens. Bob, what if Pickens gets hurt? Have you thought about that? Imagine that.
Hey, I talk about that all the time. I'm a big believer you got to have depth. It's hard to do it in a salary cap era, as we see on the offensive line. But if one of your skilled people gets it like him, and you don't have a necessary quartet of other receivers who are capable of at least, filling it by committee, then you got real problems on your hands.
I'm going to make a crazy point here. I think the Steelers could get by with T.J. Watt out for 3 or 4 weeks better than they could Pickens. Because guess what?
Herbig,
I love her.
Right?
I like Herbig, exactly. I think Herbig's a player.
No, I do too. They got to figure out ways to get him on the field a little bit more. Let's go back out to the lines. We got Josiah in San Antonio, Texas. Hello, Josiah. What's up?
Hey, Bob. Hey, Andrew. Listen, I think it's ridiculous. I heard the clip from Stephen A. Smith, not you guys, but the national media. Would they relax? This is 2 preseason games, and Stephen A. sitting up here talking about, well, they have last place division written all over them. This is ridiculous, and you guys are accurate. I called the other day and said the same thing. Even if they miss out on IU, the receiving core is thin. They need to go out and get at least one more receiver because, like you just mentioned, Bob, Pickens gets hurt or he just, gets injured or anything like that. That receiving core is atrocious.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not good enough to have an offense that is going to threaten the secondary. They'll load the box, they'll stop the run, they'll do whatever it takes because they probably would believe that one-on-one coverage they have an advantage, and they would be right. So at least to just a conundrum of what you do here. I don't know where this thing goes. I don't know how long it takes, but I do know this. Brandon Ayuk, if he's honestly looking at it from if it's just money, that's one thing, but he passed up a lot of money from New England. I was surprised because I thought it was all about money. But if it's more than that, but which franchise would he be better served and which is closer to winning right now? That offense in San Francisco is very good.
It is, but they've only got so much money to go around. And Trent Williams hasn't even showed up to San Francisco camp yet, Bob.
Yeah, I know.
And he's a better player than Ayuk. He's the best left tackle in football. Okay, then you've got Brock Purdy next year. You've got to pay him. You've got George Kittle, who's going to be a free agent again. You've got Deebo Samuel, who I think has one more year left on his contract. He's not going to be happy if Ayuk gets paid because it's going to mean the writing's on the wall for him. I mean, it's a good problem to have so many good players, but you can't keep them all in a salary cap sport. And I think that's why from the very beginning, San Francisco dug its heels in here, and they originally weren't willing to go very far in contract negotiations with Ayuk because even though he's a really good player, he's not indispensable or someone that's necessary for them, given how many other important players they have on that roster that got them to a Super Bowl last year. So that's why I think they're in this quandary. And I still would be stunned if they end up giving Ayuk what he wants and paying him close to $30 million a year for the next 4 or 5 seasons.
We got to go to a break on that note, Andrew. Come back, squeeze some more calls next right here. It's the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, 7 nights a week, KDKA+. Bob Pompeani, Andrew Filipponi back with you. We're joined right now by Justin in Kingston, New York. Hello, Justin.
How you doing? Good evening, fellas.
Hey.
Yep.
I was wondering, would you kick the tires on a Juju reunion or maybe go and possibly get a receiver from the Houston Texans?
Well, Steven Sims, we saw him in a preseason game, and I always thought he had something to contribute. I'm not saying he's a number 2. Juju, me personally, I wouldn't go back there. I just wouldn't. Andrew, would you?
I thought he was solid for the Chiefs when they won the Super Bowl. He drew that holding penalty that won them that game against Philly. I thought last year against the Steelers, he was actually really good on Thursday Night Football. Made a catch where he pinned the ball against Casey's body. I thought he showed more explosiveness than I thought he had. It was a revenge spot for him. But honestly, compared to the receivers on this roster, I would take him back. Because I don't think he's a number 2 in today's NFL. But on this roster, I think he would be their number 2. Based on their little depth and lack of talent at the position right now.
Right, and his price would probably be right as well. Real quick, Ed in Uniontown, you have 10 seconds. Go ahead, Ed.
Thank you, gentlemen. I agree with Tony's comment about Jordan Addison. I thought he worked well with Pickett. He seemed to, when the play would break down, there was a scramble drill, he would break to open space, and then Pickett would just throw the ball to the open space and result in big plays. So I think he would have been a worthy number 1 pick.
But you also have to deal with now legal problems, Andrew. That's part of this, too. So whatever the case is, we are out of time. Appreciate it, Pony. We'll see you again tomorrow night. And we hope you join us back here tomorrow at 10:35. Always look forward to your comments and opinions here on The Sports Call. Good night.